fake fitness. Stay tuned for my video right here on Social Goals.
Say one thing before we start the show too. You're not having a good time. Wait, if you're not having a good time, you're wasting your time. You say that every night.
Situationships, and you know, all things. Thank you so much.
Daddy Yum Yum, 265 gallons of pure milk chocolate, and you are watching the Social Goals.
Like that in their system, they come out, hang out with us about 5 o'clock to 7 to 9. We're gonna get the panel discussion started. And we're gonna drop civic education because that's part of the meaning of Juneteenth is black voting power. But I'll get to that in a second. I'll let you ask the question.
Okay. So now we can see you visually. Everyone that's watching, tuning in, now we can see you. Like I said, once again, y'all, this is Mr. Demetrius Norman. He's representing the state of Black Shreveport in this particular event that's going on tonight. There's a couple of events and they're going down at Uptown Lounge. Like I said, major shout out to Ryan Williams, Mr. Gary Chambers. Hey man, tell us a little bit more, or inform us a little bit more about Juneteenth, man, because, you know, a lot of us, you know, we see it from one perspective. We don't really understand. You know, there has been a subject of discussion of our people celebrating Cinco de Mayo and not celebrating more of Juneteenth. So, man, hey, how would you like to speak about that?
Well, yeah, it's nuance and it's layers to every discussion. I always tell people the way we are maybe in the business world and corporate, where everything is a 30-second elevator pitch, everything in life shouldn't be an elevator pitch. And when we're talking about culture and our proximity to other marginalized groups of people, anybody that's giving you too quick an answer about why one group of people should or should not get along with another group of people is probably lying. So Mexico was the southern leg of the Underground Railroad. Mexico had a black president, Vincent Guerrero. He became president. Vincent Guerrero became president of Mexico. Second president in Mexican history. Brother. He was black and he had native ancestry also. He was Afro-Indigenous. Something similar to like our Creole people, you know, and the difference is he wasn't mixed with the colonizer, to my knowledge. Now, African Americans, as they were making their way down into Mexico, is twofold. There was like the transcontinental slave trade. The United States had one of the smallest shipments of slaves. So when we tell Black American history, we have to tell it from a Pan-African perspective. Pan-Africanism evolved out of anti-slavery and anti-colonialism movements. That part, put a pin in it. We'll come back. So what's happening to black people in the southeast region of the United States, right? Like 90% of black people, the slaves that we're talking about, that were emancipated during Juneteenth, 90% of black people lived in the southeast region of the United States up until 1910, right? Slavery was abolished 1865. Free-ish is what we like to say, right? Because emancipation freed some people, didn't free everybody, because emancipation was in exchange for service in the Union Army in the Civil War. You follow me? So this isn't something that they're doing because we're black. This isn't something that they're doing because slavery is wrong. This is a negotiation so that white people in the North can conquer white people in the South and take over the money that's being made in the South. Because the majority of the money being made in this particular region of the Americas was being made in the Confederate South. Obviously, these were very wealthy plantations made off the backs of brothers and sisters in the Confederate South, right? And I can't emphasize enough that we didn't live all over the United States. We're not that populous all over the United States now. There are states with less than 5% black population. Black people primarily live in the southeast region of the United States, closest to Africa. Like geographically closest, coming from the triangular trade from the west coast of Africa through the Caribbean and then into the Gulf in that area, the southeast region. About 40% of black people that are alive right now descend specifically from Charleston, South Carolina. And I didn't even know that until with less than 5% black population. I didn't even know that part. I'm sorry. I didn't even know that part until like recently, like last year. And doing my own genealogy and my own ancestry with my family, finding an ancestor that came from South Carolina. And what I did to read it, it's like about 40% of y'all came from Charleston. The reparations that we talk about when we talk about Juneteenth. The reparations was 400,000 acres of land in Charleston, South Carolina that was promised to us through Field Order 15. Field Order 15 was reversed by President Andrew Johnson after Abraham Lincoln was unalived, after his life was taken. Lincoln had signed off and promised us 400,000 acres in South Carolina. They chose Charleston, South Carolina, because that's where almost half of us came from. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's kind of like this is where most of our journey begins in the United States. So it's only right that we give them this land that we took from some of the first slave owners in the United States in Charleston, South Carolina, where almost half of African Americans are going to trace their roots to. If they do that genealogy, I encourage more black people to do that, because there was triangular slave trade. What a lot of black people are going to find out, genealogists estimate that a third of African Americans are Afro-Latino, meaning you have ethnic origins in the Latin countries outside of the United States. One of those places we have firm black history is in Mexico. Mexico has a black city named Negro Mescogos. Y'all can type that into your phone, into your maps. It's an actual city. They celebrate Juneteenth. Negro Mescogos, it literally references the black Indians or the black Seminoles. We call them black Seminole Indians. The black Seminole Indians fought in the Civil War on the Union Army side. The black Seminoles were in Galveston when the Union Army rode their horses into Galveston to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation, which, you know how people say that's when Juneteenth begins, is in Galveston. There's black Seminole Indians in Galveston who, don't let the name fool you, they're not Indians, they weren't already in America. They were Gullah Geechee Africans from South Carolina mostly, and the areas around South Carolina. Gullah Geechee people in Georgia. When y'all listening to Migos, when y'all listening to Future, and that strong, thick Atlanta accent, that's a Afrocentric, that's an African accent that Gullah Geechee people retain more strongly than other groups of black Americans. So when you're traveling to the Carolinas, that's where slavery in the U.S. kind of started at. So you're still hearing African tongue when you're hearing black people from the Carolinas talk. When you're talking to people in the state of Georgia that are black, you're hearing the African tongue. When you hear people in Atlanta talking about what's up, shouty, like you actually hearing the African tongue speaking English. And if you listen to recent people that are recently from Africa speak English, and then you listen to people that are black from the furthermost, the far eastern region of the United States, Florida, when you listen to Plage, and Plage got that strong accent, Plage is speaking Gullah Geechee, whether he knows it or not. That accent is distinct to that area of the United States and in slavery. So some of the Gullah Geechee people, they fought back from the beginning of slavery. And that's not just true in the United States. in every country that Africans were brought on the boat ride, there was a small percent of black people, Africans, who fought the slave owners back. The martial art capoeira that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar used to do, like in the Bruce Lee movie, that was a martial art developed by black slaves in Latin America fighting back against white people. Same white people that enslaved us in the United States. So it's not really a slavery or a situation that's exclusive to, I think Tariq Nasheed and people like that call it foundational black American, and like they want to separate our history out from the other Africans that were brought to other places. But like if you don't talk about what happened with slavery in 1492 when Columbus pulled up to Haiti and to the Dominican Republic, the Dominicans, our Dominican brothers and sisters and the Haitians, they were some of the first chattel slaves, right? Like what happened to us black folk in Louisiana is directly related to the island of Hispaniola and especially the Haitians. Because in Louisiana, we were part of the French colony. We were under Côte d'Ivoire. We literally share history with Caribbean black people. You know, more so than some of our brothers and sisters from the East Coast. It gets all, like when you unpack the nuance of it, it gets jumbled up. And to understand Juneteenth, you have to understand Pan-Africanism. You have to understand African history, because black slavery starts with Africans being brought on ships to the South, to what they call the dirty South in hip hop. They wonder why Southern rap music is so popular and so prevalent. Like every black music art form is started down here in the Southern East region, which is the blackest region statistically, the most black people, and it's the first place where Africans got here, right? So black culture is African. So fast forward. There were African slaves brought to Mexico. Mexico was colonized by the Spanish, just like the Dominican Republic, just like Haiti, just like Florida was part of the Spanish colony. Texas, Nevada, Arizona, California, all that Spanish territory, right? Hispanic Latino culture. It makes sense that when you go to that part of the country, people are going to have Latino accents. You're going to see a lot of Latino people. I mean, it technically was it wasn't America originally, right? The whole time we're going through slavery. So we fast forward. Texas was part of Mexico, right? So if Juneteenth started in Galveston, what country did Juneteenth start in? On a cultural level. I ask you, Hopes.
Okay.
If Galveston was Mexico, and that's where Juneteenth started, and white people took over Texas from the Mexicans, that's the reason for 6 flags. Where did Juneteenth really start culturally?
Mexico.
So why wouldn't black people be at a party, like if they didn't know any of this stuff I'm rambling and talking about, why wouldn't black people see Hispanic and Latino people turning up and instinctively feel like them my cousins having a party and turn up with Mexicans? Because we were doing it in 1829 when Mexico abolished slavery. That was the southern leg of the Underground Railroad. You see what I'm saying? And so you can't tell the story of Juneteenth without what they call blolos or black Mexicans, like Brother Will.I.am from the Black Eyed Peas. He talks about how people erase the presence of black people in Mexican culture. A lot of people get confused when they go to Mexico and they see people celebrating Juneteenth. But Juneteenth is really kind of like a Pan-African collaboration. It's a multi-ethnic, multicultural thing. The fact that we got to have a Juneteenth, right? Juneteenth, it celebrates the Emancipation Proclamation that was a conditional war measure to free black people whose families fought in the Union Army. It didn't free everybody. Most of Louisiana parishes where we're at were actually excluded in the document, in the Emancipation Proclamation. That's why we had to go on to have the 3 slave amendments. The 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment. Those are the 3 foundational laws or amendments to the Constitution. They are the foundation of what's called civil rights law. The 1964 Civil Rights Act, the 65 Voting Rights Act, they never would have happened without the foundation of the slave amendments, 13, 14, 15. The 13th is against cruel and unusual servitude. Louisiana is a convict leasing state. We passed the convict leasing law in Louisiana directly in response to the 13th Amendment. Our state prison, Angola, is named after one of the largest countries in Africa, Angola, where African slaves were brought from. Follow me. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You got to connect all this together, because I'm telling you, I see a lot of people, especially foundational Black Americans, they're trying to tell a Juneteenth story. Like, even notice you got Pan-African colors up on the Juneteenth flyer that we're going to be doing tonight. There's even been question about why people put up Pan-African colors when we're celebrating Juneteenth. When in fact, like I say, the reason we got there, 13, 14, 15, the 14th Amendment, that establishes citizenship for people that are not white. You know, the first law passed in the United States, the Naturalization Act of 1790, that excludes citizenship to only white landowning men. That's the first law ever passed in America. You have to be white, you got to be a man, and you got to be a landowner to be a citizen in the United States. You remember the Dred Scott ruling?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dred Scott was a brother from the South, where most black folk came from, that came in from Africa. Dred Scott ruling said what? A black man cannot be a citizen of the United States. He has no rights that the average white man is obliged to consider or respect. That's the ruling. Black people can't be citizens, even though we were here hundreds of years in slavery. You know, you're not from Western Europe, so you can't be a citizen. So the 14th Amendment says all people born on U.S. soil can naturalize as a U.S. citizen. Naturalization by birthright. If you're born on U.S. soil, you now have the right to naturalize as a citizen. In theory, all this is conditional. These are negotiations to get us to be citizens. Stop running away to Mexico. You know, don't try to get on a boat, go to Haiti, because they got free black people over there and they fighting white people back. Stay here in America. We gonna try to make things better for you. So we done gave you emancipation for you, some of y'all. We done gave you a 13th Amendment, even though the southern states say, well, we just gonna lock you up for being a criminal. We just gonna lock more black people up, and we're gonna sell the prison labor. That's convict leasing that Louisiana's under. All right, 14th Amendment says, all right, to really make black people be free, we're gonna have to make it where they can be citizens like us. Because if they don't have rights, and black people, and they're basically getting locked up for being black and not having a job, the job they have to get is with the slave owner. We're gonna have to make it where they can have schools and own land. Abraham Lincoln, during that whole reparations talk, he signed off on the Moral Land Act grant so we could build HBCUs. So HBCUs are a part of reparations, literally. The same time the 400,000 acres was promised, HBCU land was awarded, the Land Act grant, HBCU funding, that's through the Moral Land Act grant. So if you look up your HBCUs, it's 100 of them. The first one, I can't think of the name, but I'll follow up with you in a message with it. We got to do some work on that. But the first HBCU I found was actually being built pre-Civil War. Right? So they're helping us establish schools. This is part of, we're not going to let you in our schools, but to make you citizens, we're going to help you build your own schools so you can be on a level with us. We're going to give y'all some land. We're going to give you opportunities to live like white men. You fought in the Civil War for us. You fight in the Civil War for us. We're going to do this for you. Right? This is how emancipation is working out for black people. 14th Amendment establishes birthright citizenship. There's a catch to the 14th Amendment. Did you see how they used the 14th Amendment host on Donald Trump recently?
No, actually, I didn't.
You can't lead a state level office and have been found to have acted in a revolt against the state. That's Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. 2 states challenged Donald Trump's presidency under that statute. But think about it. That law was, that amendment, the 14th Amendment, that's a slave amendment. That was meant to abolish slavery. It has the same legal purpose as the Emancipation Proclamation that we celebrate 1865 for with Juneteenth. So why would a law meant to make African American citizen and thus make it illegal to enslave us? Why would Section 3 say, well, you can't serve in office if you revolt against the state? Like, why would they say that? Why do you think?
Man, that's a good question.
So 1804, what did black people do in Haiti? They revolted. Those Gullah Geechee people from the Carolinas, how did they end up in Galveston? How did they end up in Mexico? How did Mexico gain its independence from Spain? Mexican independence was a black and native fight against the Spanish. African Americans, right, and Blolos, black Mexicans that were already in Mexico from slavery, they came together with the indigenous people and they laid the smack down on the Spanish. That's how Mexico got free. It was basically a slave revolt. Mexico is an independent state as the result of a slave revolt. Okay? Haiti freed itself as the result of a slave revolt. Haitian independence was recognized by the United States government in 1862 in July is when they signed a document formally acknowledging the sovereign state and the independence of Haiti. 1862 in July, believe it was July 12th. They appointed a executive member of the White House to serve as a liaison between America and Haiti. September of 1862 is when the first draft of the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. Right? Now, keep in mind, the war in Haiti against the French white people, against Napoleon's troops, that had happened way back. That happened way back in 1804, before 1865 was even thought about. Right? And I'm dropping these dates to try to string the timeline together, let you know the 1800s was pressure across the African diaspora, because almost in every country and region that African slaves were being kept, black people were saying, I'm tired of this stuff. And they were fighting, unaliving, they were toppling slave owners. They were revolting. And African American abolition of slavery, 14th Amendment Section 3 says you cannot revolt against the state and be in leadership. Right? And they're saying this after Haiti has liberated itself from slavery. They're saying this after Mexico has liberated itself from slavery. Right? They're taking over the state of Texas from Mexico because of Texas' position on slavery. Keep in mind, Texas is 53% Mexican to this day. And if I were to show you graphs, I'll send you some of my data from the Brookings Institute and from the Census Department.
Okay.
Texas right now has the largest inward migration of black people out of all 50 states. Texas has the largest inward migration of black Afro-descendant people out of every state in the union. There is an exodus. It's almost like how black people were flying to Atlanta at one point. Atlanta is sustaining its inward migration. I think it's in the number 3 spot. Atlanta still has black people coming in. Texas has black people coming in. North Carolina has the second highest migration inward of black people. So black people are flighting back to the Carolinas. California actually has an outward migration. That was one of the first places our people migrated to after slavery. New York had an inward migration. They're leaving New York. They're leaving California. They're leaving Chicago. They're leaving the Midwest. They're leaving the places that we used to run to after all this emancipation stuff, after Jim Crow. They're all coming back to the Carolinas. They're all coming back to Texas. And people that don't know the history, they ask me in my live stream on my platform all the time, well, Meechus, why is it that black people would move to Texas? I thought Texas was racist. Isn't Texas a white state? Why would black people want to be in Texas? Why would black people move back to the South? Right? And one of the top answers that black people have for why they're migrating to the South is they're tracing their family roots, familial bonds and ties. They want to reconnect with family in the South. They've done their family history. They've done their genealogy, and they they don't feel that love and that bond in other places that we migrated to. But also they're learning this history that I'm telling you right now.
Okay.
The history I'm telling y'all right now is why Texas has the largest inward migration in the U.S. because it used to be Mexico, and it was part of the southern leg of the Underground Railroad, and it was the first state to recognize Juneteenth. Why do you think the state of Texas will recognize a black emancipation holiday? And it's in the South. It's a Confederate state. Why else would they be recognizing Juneteenth first? Why would Juneteenth be starting in Texas? And I'm not saying there isn't racism in Texas. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I'm saying there's some history that we don't know about how we freed ourselves. If you talk to a black Seminole Indian who represents their African ancestry as Gullah Geechee, if you talk to a black Seminole from Oklahoma, from Galveston where Juneteenth started, or from Nacimiento in Mexico, in Negro Mezcogos, they're going to tell you my people liberated themselves. The black Seminoles became Seminole Indians under the Seminole tribe with the natives because they were like maroons. They ran away from slavery. They fought slave owners back. They ran away from slavery. They migrated all throughout the South. They went from the Carolinas to Georgia to Florida to Galveston to Mexico. That's the story of the black Seminoles. The black Seminoles were like some black samurai warriors. It's the reason why everywhere you go in America, you know, it's one thing for black people to say they're Indians. We ain't gonna get into that today. It's another thing to say you're a black Seminole.
Okay.
Right? Because the black Seminoles were Buffalo soldiers. The black Seminoles entered the Civil War that earned us our emancipation under the U.S. government. The black Seminoles were in that Civil War fighting for our freedom. The black Seminoles fought in 1863 in the Civil War. 1863. Now, all the Juneteenth shirts, what number is on the Juneteenth shirts?
1865.
So if the black Seminoles fighting in the Civil War in 1863, you know what I mean? Then
Right.
That means when we talk about Juneteenth, we got to tell the story of the black Seminoles.
Okay.
We got to tell the story of the Geechee people. We got to talk about our proximity to natives because Seminoles fought on both sides of the war. Some of them owned slaves. It's a complicated history. You get what I'm saying? Some of our black Creole people that were fathered by white French men owned slaves. Not all, and I love my Creole fam, not all black Creoles rock with Juneteenth or rock with the whole concept of emancipation. Because if you were mulatto, and I hate using that term, but that's what was on the American census before 1870. If you were mulatto, first of all, the only way you showed up on a census before 1870 with your name and not enumerated under a slave owner is if you had a white parent, is if you were mulatto. And mulatto had a very specific legal meaning. It meant you had one white parent and one African parent. Not native, not none of the other stuff, right? So our history is complicated because when you say this is just a black holiday, there are people that phenotypically present as black who have not only a white bloodline, but white loyalty. And culturally don't have the same history as Afro-descended people. Those of us that are what I call, you have assimilationist black people, and you have anti-assimilationist black people. And see, anti-assimilationist black people, you can tell a Nigerian that is against conforming with white people. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You can tell them the story of Juneteenth, and even though it's not their immediate story, that Nigerian that's anti-assimilationist, they chest gonna pop up. The black man stood up. You know, that's something that people in the diaspora that are non-conforming, that don't conform to white supremacy, even when it's not our specific story, we still see it as our story. That's why Juneteenth is turned into a Pan-African, a worldwide celebration, right? Just like people celebrate Kwanzaa outside the U.S., people are starting to celebrate Juneteenth outside the U.S., and they've been celebrating it in Mexico because of Pan-Africanism and because of multicultural solidarity. Multicultural solidarity is built into our ancestors, even in slavery. Even when some people that might have been native, it was only like 5 tribes that owned slaves. They were called the civilized tribes. Cherokee, Chickasaw, Muskogee, some of the Seminoles. Like I say, you had the ones that fought on the Confederate side. The Seminoles actually fell out with each other over North-South slavery.
Okay.
Right. So just when you say Seminole, you can still be around somebody that the history is different. You know what I mean? But that's why I'm very specific when I talk about these things. And that's why, like, I think you can even see from my conversation today, when we have this holiday each year, there need to be books being purchased for family members. There need to be family meetings. I think one of the best ways we can celebrate Juneteenth is not only to pull out some of this history, like Louisiana people need to know French slavery. We won the Côte d'Ivoire. We need to know that there were black, white people. We need to know that when the elections come around, you know what I mean? That just because somebody looks like me does not mean they're loyal to me. There were black Creole people that were against abolition because they were already free. But that's not just a black American story. You had people of color in Mexico like that. You still got something like that. Mexicans are overall in solidarity with black people. White Spanish Mexicans are not.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? There's white supremacists that run Mexico that colonize Mexico. There's white supremacists that colonize the Dominican Republic. So of course you're gonna meet some people of color, even some that are Afrocentric, even some that look like us, that are gonna say, nah, I'm not you. They're not really saying racially. They're saying culturally. Some of them are with the slave owner. Some of them are the slave owner kids. Now you got some Creole people that was part of the Black Panthers. You got pro-black Creole people, you got pro-black, you got anti-black Creole people. But you have that all through the diaspora. You see what I'm saying? The reason why it was 2023 before Juneteenth even got made a federal holiday, not all black people cared to celebrate emancipation or black freedom. I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna drop this and I'm gonna land my plane. I'm gonna let you ask any remaining questions you got. I told you about the 14th Amendment. Section 3 was against revolts. The 15th Amendment, nobody ever remembers the 15th Amendment. And I'm sure you know the 15th Amendment, right?
Offhand, no, I don't.
It's the right to vote.
Okay.
It's the right for black people to vote. So just imagine why black people don't talk about the 15th Amendment a lot. Now that's one of 3 amendments that abolish slavery. 13th, servitude, why? Because black people go to jail a lot.
Right.
Whether it's our fault or not, we are targeted, right? We can talk about the disparities in police stops, but we deal with the incarceration system a lot. So we're going to talk about the prison system. We're going to talk about 13th Amendment. 14th, I don't think we talk about a lot either. Because when we talk about immigrants, when we talk about why black people partying with Mexicans, we need to protect the border from Mexicans, all that. What year did black people become citizens? You know that? Because we didn't become citizens in 1865. We were emancipated. Stop whipping them with the whip. That's what 1865 was. It wasn't long after, but you know what year we actually became part of the U.S.?
1869, right? Was it 69?
Close. That's when they started voting on it. It was 1870. You basically right.
Okay.
1870 is when the act passed. Because you know you got to pass House and the Senate. So one of the bills might have passed the year you're talking about.
February 1870. I don't remember the date, but February. Okay.
Yeah, and I read the Naturalization Act of 1870 on my live stream a lot.
Okay.
And it says Africans in nativity and A&D, African descendants. That is the definition of Black American. That is the legal definition for Negro in the United States. People, Africans in nativity and African descendants. Meaning if you're black and you come from anywhere on this globe and you naturalize as a United States citizen, what are you categorized as by America? You are black or African American. And African American isn't a new term. It didn't start with Jesse Jackson. When we were emancipated, they were emancipating Africans. You know how you want to know they emancipated Africans? Because in 1875, they passed the Chinese Exclusion Act. They made sure to slam the door shut on any non-white person that was not African. So it was important that you not be Indian. Native Americans weren't ruled as citizens until the 1924 Indian Citizenship Act. So you can't holler Juneteenth and then say your people didn't come from Africa and you an Indian and then you represent Juneteenth. Because Juneteenth had nothing to do with Native Americans in that way. Even the Black Seminole Indians to this day will tell you they are Gullah Geechee people. They are African. You get what I'm saying? Indians weren't made citizens in 1865. Indians weren't freed from slavery in 1865. Native Americans did not have any legal rights under the U.S. government in 1865, in 1870. Native Americans, they were relocated under the Indian Relocation Act in 1835.
Okay.
They were, Caddo Parish is named after the Caddo and Mississippi tribes, the Caddo natives. You go look, they talk about 1835 on the Caddo Parish Commission website. And very few people born and raised in Caddo Parish have ever seen a Native American in real life. You ever seen a Caddo person walking down the Cooper Road? Like full, there's only 10 people alive that speak Caddo. And we live in Caddo Parish. The Caddo people were relocated to Oklahoma in 1835. So if you're black and your family bloodline, we'll just keep it local with Louisiana. If you grew up here in Louisiana, you can't talk this foundational Black American, Black Indian stuff somebody talking in New York. You don't even have the same Black history or proximity to Juneteenth as a Black person whose bloodline is from New York. The slavery laws were different. Your experiences, your Jim Crow was different. The state laws were different. You get what I'm saying? What experience Black people had with the Caddo Native Americans, that's completely different than what Black people from Mississippi experienced with the Chickasaw. The Chickasaw used to unalive Black people. Chickasaw was the most anti-Black Native American tribe. There's no such thing as your people was cool and you like part Chickasaw and part Black. If you were, your family was terrorized. It's not the same as someone else's Black indigenous story. So a lot of people run with these stories and sensationalize and take off with it. And I bring up all these things because we have all these conversations going on in the Black community. So-called mixed Black people. I hate calling people mixed. Homo sapiens are inherently mixed. All humans are mixed. There's no such thing as race. It's a white European construct. But because we've been racialized as people that have been colonized and have been enslaved, we speak in terms of race when we're trying to talk culture. You get what I'm saying? And when we see somebody that we think is another race say, man, I'm rocking with y'all on Juneteenth. Nah, man, don't come over here with our stuff. And that person may be Black and Puerto Rican. You know, we questioning a Black Puerto Rican brother or sister for wanting to celebrate Juneteenth with us because you got something else in you. You know what I mean? When in reality, that's irrelevant to chattel slavery. We were all a mixture of Africans brought from different countries. And even during slavery, we had proximity to other ethnic groups. And we didn't have rights. So overall, like I'm 80% African from my genealogy. But all of us kind of have some other things we're going to find in our family tree.
Right. That's
not African. That doesn't make you less Black. It doesn't make you less African. It makes you a survivor. That's how Homo sapiens survived 300,000 years ago in Africa. Genetic variation. Traveling away from home as far as possible. Procreating with other people. That's what humans do. There wasn't a such thing as a race construct until chattel slavery, until the transcontinental slave trade. Europeans created the race construct to justify enslaving people from our specific part of the world. So that's how they justify enslaving natives in the Americas. That's how they justify enslaving Africans and trafficking us to America. Was that these people are a separate scientific race. And so this is no different than what we do with the cows and the chickens and the sheep. Right? Race was literally created by German eugenic scientists to dehumanize and delegitimize non-white humans. So when we calling each other mixed, oh, she got that good hair and that light skin. We literally are dehumanizing each other. And we're literally practicing white supremacy as black people and don't even know it. And I say that on Juneteenth because if this is going to be our Emancipation Day, our Liberation Day, we can't be out here just celebrating it, just consumer shopping and popping bottles. We do that year round.
Right.
If we're going to put slavery on this holiday and say that we care about slavery, we at least need to pick up a book. Everybody on the internet, Google is free. We at least need to sit down a few minutes each day and learn about slavery. It's not as easy a conversation as you think it is. I summarized it a lot. If you sit there and you just go state to state with slavery, you're going to cry. You're going to get angry. You're probably going to want to punch something. When you realize the white people that you be in the office kikiing with, you know what I mean? Like the white people you aspire to be like and dress like. When you realize where Elon Musk money come from, you're not going to sit around being a black conservative talking about how smart Elon Musk is. His entire wealth comes from slavery in South Africa. You know what I mean? Like when you realize where a lot of these so-called white billionaires' wealth come from, it comes from your family struggle. And that our families were used to build J.P. Morgan. And J.P. Morgan made loans against the slaves that I'm talking about. You get what I'm saying? When you realize that every business you do business with, every bank, every mortgage loan company, you know what I'm saying? When you realize we were legally separated to the point where you're not a citizen, so no, you can't buy a house. I don't care how hard you work. I don't care that you were in the military. I don't care. You and your black family are not buying a house here, redlining. It's still going on now. Digital redlining. I don't care that you got smart people on the Cooper Road. We're not giving y'all high-speed internet. Digital divide. Started in the 90s. We were supposed to be past race, past slavery. Right? I bring up a lot of legal stuff and a lot of political stuff. And tonight, when I meet up with Gary Chambers in a couple hours, we're going to be talking about civic engagement. We became citizens 1870, right?
Right.
By 1874, I want to say 1874, we had 6 black congressmen. We had 6 black congressmen. We had black colleges and schools. We were just slaves a few years ago. Right? So 1865 happens emancipation. 1870, we become naturalized citizens. Anyone of African descent. Our African brothers and sisters can come up in from Mexico, from Haiti. They created this because we were conquering other countries. Don't conquer other countries, just come to America. That's a game. They let us serve in office for a little while. 1874, we had 6 black congressmen. We had over 2,000 black elected officials in the 1870s. We won 2,000 offices throughout the United States. We had 80% voter participation among black people. 80% of black people that could vote voted in the 1870s. We were building colleges. I think Southern might have been, 1890s, 1870s. How old is Southern? Southern University? Southern University at A&M. Like we're talking about by 1900, like we're coming out of slavery, voting, reading books, building colleges. Durham, Carolina. I think it's South Carolina. Is it South Carolina, North Carolina? Durham, we had a Black Wall Street. Mississippi, we were building things.
To answer the question about Southern, it's 1880.
1880.
Yeah. So
we saying free-ish 1865. Anybody that would question sending their child to Southern University in Baton Rouge, it was 1880.
It was. It was created in 1974, but it was established by Louisiana State Legislature in Act 87 in 1880.
1880. Mm-hmm. So that's okay, and that came out. So that comes out of the money that Louisiana got from the Moral Land Act grant. Right. that was for all HBCUs on a federal level, and then the states were responsible for disseminating that tax establishment. So in Louisiana, like, we chose to take the A&M route, and even some of the, like, most of the HBCUs that were started in the Carolinas was started by what's called AME churches.
Okay.
African Methodist Episcopal Church.
Yep.
What's the oldest Bible in the world? The Ethiopian Coptic Bible. 88 books. That's the most complete canon. Real theologians will tell you that. The African Bible, the Ethiopian Bible, those Pan-African colors up on your screen, the red, gold, and green is the Ethiopian flag. Never been colonized. And their Christianity predates white Christianity. You follow?
Wow.
So, yeah. So I'm putting you on game. Like, so imagine, like, we were slaves. 1865, we break the shackles free. 1870 to 1880, we win in 2,000 political offices. The 1880s come in, we got Southern University in Baton Rouge. You talk, the human jukebox, okay, is being created coming up out of a cotton fields. A lot of people don't know this, not from Louisiana. Tell them, we still got plantations here. They go on plantation tours in Louisiana. That's how people get full of mimosas and go walk around plantations in 2024. So you gotta think, what's happening with white people and black people? You gotta think, what happened after 1865? What are black people and white people sitting around talking about? Are white people happy? You know what I'm saying? You black and you just helped somebody from New York City conquer some white people here in Caddo and Bossier. And you done got the law passed. In theory, you're a citizen. But your black buddy's still sitting right here. They ain't empowered you with no banking. Went to Freeman's Bank, but they tore that down. They ain't empowered you with no land ownership. About 1% of us actually got their own land. So, like, we were doing all the things, but what happened was white people in the North broke their promises. You know how they like to bring up, especially around Juneteenth, you know, the Republicans are the ones that freed the black folk. You ought to be voting for Trump. If you're really happy about Juneteenth, 1865, that was a Republican thing, right? You hear that a lot, right?
Right.
What they don't tell you is that the Republicans in the Union, after Abraham Lincoln was unalive, they sided with Andrew Johnson to give the land back to the Confederates. And it wasn't just Andrew Johnson. The Republicans and the Democrats, bipartisan, came together to disenfranchise black people because we started winning elections over white people. We started taking seats that white people wanted. Even the so-called non-racist white people did not want to compete. They didn't think we would become that intelligent, that industrious, and that powerful after freeing us from slavery. Once we started playing the American game better than white men, the white people that were so-called against slavery, they started joining the Triple K. If you go to New York State, outside of New York City, like Buffalo somewhere, you're going to see Confederate flags. You're going to see Confederate flags in the Midwest. You're going to see Confederate flags in California. Care you how woke they tell you California is. There's a reason the Watts riots happened in 1965. 100 years after we were emancipated. You see what I'm saying? So it's nuanced and it's tricky when we're talking about our freedom. And the reason why some black people might even be like, you know how to say, why black people ain't making a big deal about Juneteenth? And it's not that we're not making a big deal, it's that all the stuff they promised us during the initial Juneteenth, they went back on it.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Even with making black people citizens, if it was really about liberating black people, why would they turn down? Why would they, at the same time that they giving us citizenship, say no to Filipino people that were here all 400 years? Why couldn't Filipino people be citizens till? I mean, if it was really that slavery is wrong and the Civil War was fought against slavery, why would they make everybody that's not black? You can't be in this. You can't be in this. This freedom, this emancipation with black people. Only the African ones. You get what I'm saying? And then that creates a division with us with other non-white ethnic groups. Because we got our citizenship first, but now we're having to protect our proximity to white people. You know what I'm saying? To protect all the things that we're getting through them. And then it becomes envy with us when we start seeing Mexican, Hispanic, Latino, Dominican, Puerto Rican, Asian people start getting rights. We start getting kind of feeling the type of way. Why are you giving them people rights off our stuff? But if it was about abolishing slavery, the institution of slavery, why would you want any human, why would you want any group of people to be enslaved? Why would I, somebody that's African American who has ancestors that enslaved, why would I want any other human to be enslaved? Why would I want Latino people to be enslaved? Why would I want sharecroppers, brown people down in Florida to not have the same rights that I have as a black man? You get what I'm saying? Why would I want Asian people to not have rights? Why would I want Caribbean people who are black to not have rights? Why would I want continental Africans that migrate here? Why would I see them as an adversary if I know that black people live in the Southeast mostly, 56% of us, because we come from Africa? And our accent is African. And hip-hop is African. Why are people so butthurt about hip-hop being considered a Pan-African music form? About other black people from other countries taking credit for hip-hop? It was Jamaicans there. It was black Caribbeans there when they started hip-hop. Why do some of our black American brothers in New York, why do they see other black people, and because they have a strong accent, why do they see them as, okay, you not ours? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then let's keep it real. Out of everybody, if we just talk about black Americans, if we get everybody else out of it, do you think they was real big on Juneteenth up in New York? You think it was a Juneteenth celebration when they was starting hip-hop? How does hip-hop start if there's not emancipation? How do your early hip-hop artists rap about slavery and white supremacy and our connection to Africa, but they got Africans right there they don't rock with? Don't rock with Southern hip-hop artists, even though the slavery went on where we live at.
Yeah.
The African-American migration makes up most of the black population in the East Coast. But if we just get off all the slavery and the race stuff and we start talking about hip-hop, there's a regional bias in hip-hop, right? And what they call Southern rap, mumble music?
Yep.
That's the code word for Southern music, right?
Yep.
Right, when they say mumble music, who they talking about? 21? Talking about, who they talking about when they say mumble rap? Migos?
All the new, yeah.
Yeah. You know, why are black people speaking a white language judging each other for how our level of English that we speak? You know, so, I mean, these are just questions I want to kind of lead the listeners with when we're talking about Juneteenth. And I guess my biggest question is, how can you be pro-black and not vote? If you know that we had 80% voter turnout in the 1870s. What's pro-black? Like if 1865 literally happened because of voting, because of a political action, because of laws being passed, why would we not be voting in 2024? You get what I'm saying? And why would we be voting for people that are against immigration? Why would we vote for a GOP that's against immigration when we're naturalized immigrants? Black Americans are naturalized Africans. And that's based on the legal paperwork that was passed to create 1865 and Juneteenth. They were literally referring to us as Africans when they were drafting the Emancipation Proclamation. The Naturalization Act of 1870 literally calls us Africans and lumps us in a category with the African diaspora. So how can we as a naturalized immigrant be anti-immigrant in 2024? How can we be anti-immigrant? How can we not be voting? How can we be anti-HBCU? How can we be against black schools and black businesses when in the 1870s, you couldn't even go into a white business? The only way you could go to a store is if newly freed black people built a store with their own two hands. The only reason you have food is if people that look like you grew the food and fed it to you. During slavery, after slavery, on into the 64 Civil Rights Act, that then, even though it was important and it abolished apartheid in the U.S., It also gave us the opportunity to put whatever race we want on the census for the first time in American history. And some of us chose to opt out of blackness, even those of us that say we're black. A lot of us chose white neighborhood, white schools, white institutions, white counterpart. I love white people, but I don't love them to the point where I don't love nothing black no more. You get what I'm saying? And I mean, that's who we are at this point. We are loving white people and forgiving white people. We're hating Mexicans. We're hating Chinese people. We're hating other black people that live on another side of town from us. We're hating black people with an accent. We're hating everybody except white people. That's how black Americans look in 2024. And that's why the Juneteenth ain't hitting the way we wanted to. Last year, 2023, they made Juneteenth a federally recognized holiday. So you peep, like a week after we got back from Juneteenth last year, we had a great time in Shreveport. Turn up Juneteenth, right? We had the pictures downtown, the parade, everybody barbecuing. It was lit last Juneteenth. Everybody got back to work that Monday. By that Friday, U.S. Supreme Court overturns affirmative action. Not the Dr. King dream. All through 2023, a lot of the people that fought for us to have Juneteenth as a federally recognized holiday in the workplace, they got their ass fired last year. I'm no longer with Apple on my own recognizance because of their support of slavery in the Congo and the minerals used to create our phones. We had and also union busting that was happening with Apple. Like, there was a lot of anti-black things going on as Juneteenth was being made a federally recognized holiday. These Caucasians was sitting up here cooking up a whole new version of slavery right now. You get what I'm saying? Project 2025. Project 2025 is to reverse everything that happened in 1865, 70, the 1900s, 64, 65. I literally was part of an effort with the census last time I came on your show. Back in 2020, when you was first getting this off the ground. Mm-hmm. And I talked to you about how our voting districts are being racially gerrymandered. They are racializing, they are shrinking, packing, stacking, and cracking. They are mathematically manipulating black voting districts so that even if you do go out and vote against Trump, the advantage is to the white voter voting in the white district for Trump. In dominoes, they'll call that what? Pencil whipping? Right? So it don't even matter about how much you scoring. In reality, we're taking the score differently. So it don't matter how good Green Oaks perform. It don't matter how many college students you send down the street to a college on the same Cooper Road. Because we're going to find a mathematical reason to close Green Oaks. And we're going to say it has nothing to do with race. It's just numbers. But like I said, race started with the Naturalization Act of 1790. Race is legal. Race is political. Race is numbers. Race is also money. You can't talk about either one of those things and casually slide race out of the way. Right? Because race literally determines how you bank, where you bank at, where your kids go to school, what your kids are learning in school. The STEM magnet I started at a 90% black school at Huntington High School, back before I came on your show last time, right? That particular program, they got the top gains in the state of Louisiana. Now, that same school, Huntington High School, it was a D school. Huntington High School was a D school when I came in and did the STEM magnet with a Pan-African brother, to Lawrence Grant. And my black Creole, my Afro Creole, proud black Creole brother, pro-black brother, Damien, with Orlando said, man, I want you to come in, president alumni at Huntington at the time. I want you to come in, this thing you've been doing with the robotics in the black neighborhoods and the black power stuff, come do that at Huntington. What can we do? I went in there and waved that Pan-African wand. Those black kids were getting certified in cybersecurity in 2018, 2019, all into the pandemic in 2020 when I met up with you. That was one of the programs I was telling you about when I met you.
Right.
Right. Now, I'm not an educator. I don't work in the school system. Right? I'm a software engineer. I've worked in IT for about 20 years. when I'm off work, I go do community stuff like what we're doing now. And the stuff that I'm doing in corporate, in spaces where I'm the only black person, I'm transferring that knowledge out of my brain into other black people. For years, I've contracted with the city of Shreveport, staffed a lot of their IT people, black folk. Right? So I've gotten black people jobs in tech for years. I've mentored black students at Southern University on the Cooper Road. I ain't even from the Cooper Road, but this is a historically black community. For everybody on my audience don't know, look up Cooper Road in Shreveport, Louisiana. One of the biggest black communities in the United States, built by black people. So where we recording this podcast, I ain't got to tell the host, because that's why Social Goats is here. This is one of the blackest places you can be in America, on the Cooper Road, filming the Social Goats show. You get what I'm saying? That's why I'm proud and I'm honored to come here. And that's why I get a little bit blacko. I feel a little bit more blackness in my chest whenever the brother here, the host, invites me to his home here to film this podcast, because I feel the melanin and I feel the Wakanda spirit when I come on the Cooper Road. You know what I mean? I feel all the Dr. Umar spirit, the Killer Mike spirit, you know, all the Gullah Geechee spirits. So I say we got an opportunity to do a lot of this black stuff right now. Juneteenth can really be whatever we make it. But I do want people to know it's a Pan-African achievement. It's a multicultural and a multi-ethnic achievement. It's something that the things that divide black Americans, we got to cut that stuff off when it comes to Juneteenth Day. Whatever we want to argue about, men and women gender wars, you know, black, light skin versus dark skin, like a lot of that is from the colonizer anyway. We got to cut that stuff off when it get to Juneteenth. Juneteenth, just like Kwanzaa, has become a Pan-African and a neutral holiday where we all come together and we think about how we're going to move into the next step. Because right now they done gave us Juneteenth as a federal holiday. They done took affirmative action, and you're not going to get your child into a white college or a white company now. You got to do that black business now. You got to look at Grambling and Southern University now. You got to look at Jackson State now. You can't be like Coach Prime. Shout out to Coach Prime. Love Coach Prime. But we're in a position now with, all right, here go your Juneteenth, and get the hell out of Princeton and Harvard while you're at it. I don't know if you caught that, but that was basically the message with making Juneteenth a federal holiday. We'll recognize it, but y'all got to get the hell out of Princeton and Harvard. You taking up room for white people and a couple of these little white conforming Asian people we paid off. You know what I'm saying? Y'all got to go. Come down there to... So, I mean, that's the message. And I think the loud and proud response needs to be, not only are we going to bust back with making sure that Grambling, Southern, Jackson State, HBCUs all over the country have record-breaking enrollment right now, so that we're continuing to turn out our black, educated young people, and our African-American women need to continue to be the most educated people in the country. We're going to use our HBCUs to do that with our whole chest. But to make sure that our black college graduates aren't in student loan debt, we're going to join our African-American Chambers of Commerce, our black organizations, our NAACPs, even if the old folks be tripping. We gonna, you know what I mean? We're going to come back into these organizations. We're going to start new ones if we need to. We're going to show up at all these black businesses. We're going to support black artists, actually pay for the concert tickets. You know what I mean? We're going to support our black poets, spoken word, words over lattes, all our spoken word functions black people doing, our black podcasters, like the electrifying brother that brought me on this show. It's no reason we shouldn't be running those views up. We need to break the views, right? Anytime you see a black podcaster on air, we need to be breaking the internet with those views. We need to give it the same energy we give Drake, love Kendrick Lamar, but there's a lot of black, lesser known artists, podcasters, creatives that need that same energy.
Yes, sir. You
get what I'm saying? And I think that needs to be the way we celebrate Juneteenth moving forward. What's our action we're going to stand on? How are we loving each other? How are we uplifting each other? We got 364 days left to argue. But I'll say that. I'll save something for the panel later on.
All right, man. Y'all heard it here first, man. I'd like to thank Brother Demetrius Norman for coming on. What's up, Shreveport? You already know, tonight from 7 to 9 at Uptown Bar and Lounge, you have the Juneteenth kickoff celebration. Civics for the People, Civic Engagement Workshop. And they're going to speak with it's going to be a fireside chat with millennials and gen-zers, business and politics in Louisiana, 2024 and beyond, man. We really appreciate you, man. And once again, y'all, if you didn't watch this is information you need to know. You need to watch this. You need to go back and watch it again, because this day we need to be as informed as possible. And I can honestly say that I've learned a lot listening to Mr. Norman today in an hour of over centuries. And, you know, there's so much information out there that we don't know that we need to know. So next year when we come back and have this conversation, we can actually be building upon the information we learned this year.
Absolutely. Y'all check me out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I got the Pan-African Evolution that I'm launching. And, I'll be cross-posting and supporting Social Goats and everything my homie here has going. So, we're going to try to, build a black platform. I'm going to try to focus more on these factual nuggets. If y'all go on my personal website, meechus.com, meechus.com. If you can see my Apple Music, my beats, stuff I got going on. My podcast will be there on the homepage. You can find all things Meechus related to STEM programs I'm running. Anything that I talked about today, you can actually find it on my website on meechus.com. Yeah, those y'all on my live stream. Go check out Social Goats. That's the homies from North Louisiana that's been holding it down. They helped birth this voice that y'all be listening to. So I'm back where it all started at the Mecca right here in Shreveport at Social Goats. But y'all check out meechus.com. If you want to know about all these historical facts I'll be dropping, I have a sources tab. If you click on sources, that's going to give you links to scholarly information where you can sit here and read about everything that I talked about. And then we can, as y'all start to educate yourselves and read more about it, we can have a more informed discussion on what I'm talking about. Because I know any one of the things I said to y'all today could make somebody have a heart attack. Like, Creole people's white people kids, what? I beat that fool up. Like, no, not like that. Let's talk. Let's have dinner at Orlando's, the Creole-owned restaurant. I love the Creole people, but there's nuance. I love Native Americans. There's nuance. Some owned slaves, some didn't. And all I'm saying is we got to educate ourselves and we got to dig through those uncomfortable details. Because I can tell you, if y'all go do y'all genealogy, you're going to have some uncomfortable conversations just inside your family. And you ain't got to go that far back. Slavery was only 2 or 3 grandmas ago. So don't think that you finna be digging deep before you start crying. Like, you going to get the great-grandma and be like, Granddad, great-granddaddy owned great-grandma? You know what I mean? You're going to be sitting there, confused. You know what I mean? It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a whole ethnicity of people that you never met. And you wonder, I'm 8% Scottish. I ain't never met no Scottish people. I ain't never had no Scottish family reunion. You know what I mean? I'm 5% Irish. I ain't never met no Irish people. Not that it was actually, hey, you our cousin. You know what I mean? Ain't nobody invite me no St. Patrick's Day like that. Like, you our brother. You know what I'm saying? And it's a reason for that. It's people be knowing that they related to black people that don't even bring it up. A lot of families have secrets that the family doesn't present as black, but they know good and well they have a black branch of the family that they keep from the kids. And so, like I say, it's going to be a lot of this mixed conversation. And what's going to come out of that is some people, because of their blood and their ancestry, they're going to feel more loyal to people outside the black community. Some people, even if they have, going to be like, I'm black and I'm proud. I'm black before anything. And I think we need to prepare ourselves in that conversation, and especially in Louisiana, because a lot of us have a lot more nuance in our family tree than we like to remember or we like to know. And I just think we need to start having that conversation. Everybody not just black and white in Louisiana.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a difficult conversation, but you still our brother and sister regardless of what you are. So I want to get to the point where we can have unity regardless of people's ethnicity in Louisiana, without feeling like we have to rewrite or lie about the cruel injustice that happened to us as black people. That's it.
All right, y'all. Knowledge is power. Hey, I'm Shady Will. You already know, man. We appreciate y'all. We go holla.